Okay, so thank you for joining me today. And I'm going to go through kind of the nuts and bolts and probably cover a lot of things that you know, but some of it will be a reminder and perhaps you'll see some new things. Okay, so there is some background here on who Tom and Karan are, the founders of Microbiome Labs. And Kieran, you probably see most often if you're looking at the webinars and YouTube videos. But Tom is also a very big part of the company behind the scenes, working on new formulas and all of the studies that they have in process. So as a quick review, what we focus on and what we've really studied as far as researched, what are the components that need to be in place in order to maintain a healthy gut. And we know that that is the mucin one layer, which is here, which is a vast swimming pool of different organisms represented by the different colors. And we know that the healthier the gut, the more diverse the microbiome. And one of the things we know to keep our microbiome diverse is to have a diverse environment, including what different diversity in our diet and in our exposures. And it's not a good thing to live in a bubble, to have a lot of antibacterial things that are narrowing that diversity. You can see in that mucin one layer, there are plenty of LPS, toxins and pathogens, but because this is a healthy mucin one layer with a lot of diversity, it absorbs the toxic effects, and you've got a healthy immune system, including the IgA, secretory IgA, which is here, recognizing the LPS, attaching it, and processing it. Then the second primary area that's important is to nourish and help the keystone strains thrive. Keystone strains are those very important organisms that were given to you by your mother, that you were inoculated with, first through the vaginal secretions and then second through the breast milk. And everybody has these, but they're in different amounts. And if you were born C-section or you were bottle fed or given antibiotics early on, you still have these, but they're in a very small amount and it's compromised. So it's very important to help those keystone strains to be revitalized and to thrive. The third area is mucin 2, and this is a very important barrier that helps protect the underlying epithelial cells, the tight junctures, and the microvilli. So you can see there's no pathogens, there's no lipopolysaccharide in this layer. It's being protected from entering into the lumen. And here you do see some immune cells floating around on guard, but because there's nothing escaping past this barrier, they don't have anything to do, which is a good thing. There's no inflammation. So we say all of this, which is in contrast to the other side, which is our example of leaky gut or metabolic endotoxemia. You can immediately notice there's a big difference. First of all, you see there's a lot of lipopolysaccharide, and it is degrading the mucin 2 layer here. And once that mucin 2 layer is degraded, now the barrier is compromised and you have all of the lipopolysaccharide, pathogens, and undigested food particles flooding into the lumen, and the immune system is recognizing that this is a toxin and processing it and giving off a lot of interleukins and cytokines in a cascade that leads to massive inflammation. So this is a real problem. This is now gut on fire. And this breach right here, all of the white papers, all of the studies on microbiome right now, the primary interest. Okay, I'm gonna mute for a moment. Okay, so this is where all the research is taking place right now. because this is the genesis of the food sensitivities, of autoimmune disease, and chronic illness. So we'll come back to this and we'll discuss that further. Right now we'll go on to, let's see, we'll go on to the next slide. So the first layer, Mucin 2, is represented as the reconditioning step. The second step is the reinforcement of the keystone strains. The third step is the rebuilding of that Mucin 2 layer. So in that first step, the reconditioning, the primary support product is going to be the Megaspore. And Megaspore, as you know, has 5 bacillus spores. They are protected in an endospore. They are able to make it past the gastric barrier to be, they're not phased by the hydrochloric acid. They're able to get past the pancreatic enzymes and the bile salts, and they enter the microbiome. They know where to colonize through quorum sensing. They know what's in their environment through this quorum sensing, which is a chemical surveillance system that tells them where they are and who's in the environment. And they can come out of the spore stage basically locked and loaded with a customized antibiotic to work to use against certain pathogens. And then they make short chain fatty acids and vitamins to encourage the growth and to really give those keystone strains a good jump start. And by keystone strains, these are the specific species that I've been referring to, the Akkermansia musciphylla, Faecalibacterium prunitii, and several different species of bifidobacteria. So just the Megaspore themselves, because of their increase in the short chain fatty acid production, they can increase the diversity of Mucin 1 by 40%. And that's good to know. You don't have to rotate probiotics. The idea is based on no science. And again, we've discussed in previous lectures about the problems by using other probiotics that die in the gut, have limited function through metabolic signaling, and are not able to colonize even if they did make it to the small intestine. So that's important to know, that Megaspore can do that first step, that reconditioning, improving the good gut bacteria diversity, and putting down the pathogens. And we do have the leaky gut study. We'll discuss that in a minute. That really shows how Megaspore is able to put down the lipopolysaccharide as well. And here's just a list of some of the characteristics or the benefits of Megaspore. You can see that when we discuss more is not necessarily better. You must make sure that these organisms colonize in the upper intestinal tract, and we can guarantee through our studies that 4 billion CFU enter the GI tract, 4 billion colonize. Our studies on other probiotics is 99% are killed in the stomach, so it doesn't matter your starting CFU amount if 0 colonize in the gut. Of course, no refrigeration is required because spores are highly resistant. They normalize commensal gut flora. They control bacterial overgrowth through that specific antibiotic production. They're producing the short chain fatty acids and vitamins for the keystone strains. They're modulating and improving innate and adaptive immunity, and this is very important. They help regulate and modulate Treg cells, increase the butyrate, enhance intestinal barrier function, maintain efficiency during the antibiotic therapy, and efficacy. That is, you can take these spores at the same time as antibiotics if someone is going to do that, and they won't be harmed. Okay, and this is the study. This was our first human clinical trial. It was published in August of 2017 in the Journal of Gastrointestinal Pathophysiology. And this is showing a postprandial lipopolysaccharide production. So basically, after a high-fat meal, i.e. McDonald's breakfast, after 5 hours, with someone who has a compromised gut lining, you're going to have a very high increase of this lipopolysaccharide entering the bloodstream. And the basic summary of the study was that after 30 days of spore consumption, that postprandial production of lipopolysaccharide was vastly blunted, as you can see in the comparison here. So another representation we have, the spore-treated group, they were able to reduce the LPS production by 45%, whereas the placebo group continued to increase in that lipopolysaccharide. So that was a whole nother issue that was discovered, that these chronic illnesses begin at a very young age, and with a poor diet, it is going to continue to be a problem and lead to chronic illness. So the overall reduction of lipopolysaccharide was 60%. There were other indicators that were monitored, and because they were highly significant, they individually are studies that are currently in process. So to name a few, a ghrelin study, which is the appetite control hormone. So there is a weight loss study in process. Glucagon and insulin were improved. So there is a diabetes study. This is an inflammatory marker that we are using to study autoimmune diseases. Okay, I think this, again, looking at different markers. This one is used in Hashimoto's and rheumatoid arthritis. And all of those studies will be published within the next year or two. Okay, so back to our plan of gut restoration. So we've discussed the reconditioning segment with Megaspore. Now we're going to discuss the reinforcement of the keystone strains using the prebiotic. And the prebiotic, the whole idea of prebiotic is like a fertilizer to feed these keystone strains and to help them thrive. And the reason is because each of these strains, and again, you can go on PubMed or Google Scholar and see that this is a very hot topic. These organisms correlate with improved health and reduced inflammatory bowel disease, improved weight loss, improved immune function. So we know there's several reasons for increasing these, and we know that because this is a specific prebiotic, that only these organisms are increased, that we don't have to worry about feeding pathogens. So specifically, we've got the xylosaccharides, which is from non-GMO corn, the fructo-oligosaccharides from green and gold kiwi, and galacto-oligosaccharides from cow's milk. So before you get your eyebrow goes up and says, ooh, there's corn and milk in this product, let me explain that there is no corn in milk. We are required to put on the label that it's derived from corn and milk, but there are no food products. There are no immunoreactive food components or proteins in this product. They are very specifically derived oligosaccharides and will not mount an immune reaction. However, we still suggest that you start very slow because we don't know how people react. Some people, just by reading the label that it's derived from corn and milk, can have a reaction. So always start slow. and proceed with caution. When we talk about SHIME studies, this is what we're referring to here. This is in Belgium at Ghent University. It is the most advanced way to study probiotics. They created a GI tract, a synthetic GI tract, where they can study each component, each section, and create a duplicate environment. So the first thing they do is inoculate it with a microbiome, and then they feed it different things like probiotics to see how far along in the digestive tract a probiotic will go, or to feed it toxic chemicals to see what certain toxic chemicals will do to the gut. And then they can go back and feed it the spores to see how and what mechanisms the spores use to remedy the effects of the toxic chemicals. So we just published a recent study. Again, this is a SHIME study, and it studies the symbiotic relationship between the Megaspore and then the Megaprebiotic. And this is important to see that a lot of companies can launch products, but very few actually study the effect of the products, let alone the effect with the products together used as a program. And what this study showed is that the Megaspore does a certain amount of jump starting of the keystone strains and production of the short chain fatty acids, and that the prebiotic continues that in a much greater amount. So there's that symbiotic relationship, and this is showing that the 24 to 70% increase in that short chain fatty acid was what the Megaspore was able to accomplish, but the prebiotic would go in at an 80 to 140% increase. So that's just showing once you jumpstart them, you can help them thrive by using this very specific precision brand prebiotic. And then we published another study, also a SHIME study, that showed IBS and Megaspore and the improvement that Megaspore has, even better than the pharmaceutical. So that's an important thing to recognize and utilize in your practice. Now the final step is the rebuilding of that mucin 2 layer, and we accomplished that through the product Megamucosa, and it has 3 primary ingredients in it: the concentrated immunoglobulins, the 4 amino acids, and the citrus polyphenols. And this is what I just said, those 3 primary ingredients. And this is the concentrated immunoglobulin. This is from a serum derived, so it doesn't have any issues from milk components, so dairy-free, lactose-free, and so forth. It neutralizes pathogens such as bacteria, viruses, and environmental toxins. And that's what we use it for, to help bind up or neutralize the lipopolysaccharide that's released when you're trying to shift the populations in the microbiome. And you can see it's very concentrated. Okay, so let's see. Well, I think this is just trying to say, once you combine the immunoglobulins, the citrus polyphenols, which their job is to shut down the oxidative stress that's being released when the immune cascade is on full alert, and then the 4 amino acids are going to help the goblet cells. They provide the components for the goblet cells to increase mucin 2 production by 95%, which is huge. Okay, and then this is showing, again, we've got several other research projects, studies in place. And because of that initial study showing the significant reduction in certain indicators, I already mentioned we have a diabetes, a lipid study, autoimmune studies, the hepatic encephalopathy. That's primarily with the HU58 product. We know preliminary results on the acne study is that it's reducing acne by 50%. So that's good. C. diff, this is huge because of all of the antibiotic resistance issues with MRSA and C. diff in the hospitals. This is a very important study going on. This is showing some of the cooperative companies and universities that we have these studies going on. You'll see here the Royal Holloman University of London. When you look on our specific strains, the names that are indicated on the labels of our product, you'll see some of them indicated as HU, such as HU58, and that stands for Holloman University. All spores are basically in a library. When you start a company, that's how you basically get all of their genetic information that has been studied so that you know everything about the spores. And it's kind of like a seed bank. Okay, so that kind of concludes the total gut restoration idea of when your approach for helping a client. And we've got some other products that will help on the front end, say the upper digestive tract. That's a Megagard, which is very helpful with GERD, dyspepsia, bile flow. And recently, and this was part of what I had on the email for the invitation, was discussing the phase 2.5, which is somewhat new. I just learned about it at a recent conference, and Dr. Kelly Halderman is the one that presented at the IAACN most recently, and really it revolves a lot about bile flow. We don't realize how antimicrobial bile is, and if you have a problem with bile flow, you could have a lot of issues with your digestion. And so that opens up that whole area, and you know, I have that information, and I can plan to put a presentation together to go more into depth about that. But just know that our product Metagard accomplishes the problem that is presented with a compromised phase 2 phase 2.5 detoxification, because it helps with that bile flow, and because it's the unconjugated secondary bile salts that can be very toxic. And so once you are helping with the dysbiosis and improving the bile flow, you can avoid a lot of additional digestion issues. Then one of my questions on the introduction was, do you have to rotate probiotics to achieve gut diversity? And the answer is no. As we mentioned, Megaspore in itself improves the bacterial population diversity by 40%, so you don't have to include any other probiotics really. And then what chemical component is the favorite food of the gut organisms? And that's oligosaccharides. These are non-digestible fibers to humans, but very important to help those keystone strains thrive. What is the most important physical gut barrier that must be maintained to protect tight junctions and microvilli? And the answer is the Mucin 2 layer, that thick gelatinous layer. And then what is the genetic term that describes current stool test technology? And that's 16S. We're bringing that out because we will be launching a stool test in the next month or so, and it's based on a higher technology than 16S. So we will talk more about that. I brought up the book, the ebook that I'm working on, and that's where I'm looking for volunteers. I want to do interviews with practitioners on different quotes and tips that they have found working with our products, with the microbiome in general. And um, you go on that site and see kind of the table of contents, what I'm planning to cover. A lot of it has been from my lecture materials as we've been going around in the microbiome bus tour, talking about, the early development of microbiomes and how it affects, you know, developmental immunity and autoimmunity, gut diversity, gut structure, and the microbiome destruction, everything that we just went over. And then how is that applied, what destroys the microbiome? So we look at environmental toxins, heavy metals, vaccines, glutens, refined food, herbicides, GMOs, and pharmaceuticals. And then, we have a little discussion of the alphabet soup agencies that are involved with these industries and kind of the problems associated with that. So that's the ebook project, and I'm going to go ahead and open this up for questions. So everyone is now unmuted. So what did you see that you would like more information about?
This is Mary McNeil. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi, Mary.
Hi, I'm sorry about the noise earlier.
It's okay.
I have someone who wants to try this for a 14-day trial, and I noticed that most of your studies were a 30-day trial.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any like midpoint data on what happens at 14 days?
We don't have a study particularly about that, but we've got a lot of experience in the field. We've got probably, I don't know, 10,000 practitioners, and then that times 1,000 or 2 individuals that are on the product. So we know that most people will. The first comment is, "This is like no other probiotic we've ever tried."
Oh, I hear the same thing. Yeah, I hear the same thing.
So we're real confident that they will see a difference, but it's very individual for the person. Some it may take a couple of days, some it may take a couple of weeks. So we just encourage everyone, start, because it's only going to be beneficial.
Okay, so kind of what I hear you saying is, even if you can't do it for 30 days, you don't think there's any really harm other than it costs some money to do it for 14.
Right, exactly.
Okay. So I have a patient who said he is taking Just Thrive Spore Biotechs, and he still has some of that left. And he said, should I take them both at the same time? And to me, that was a little bit of overkill, and you're confusing 2 products.
Right.
And so I'll tell you what I told him, and then tell me if I was right or wrong.
Okay.
To me, it made more sense, since his body was acclimating to this other spore product, to use that until it's gone. And once it's gone, stop and start Megaspore. Is there any advantage or disadvantage to staying with what he's got and not trying to do 2 at one time, other than the fact that he won't know which one had the best effect if he's taken 2 of them?
Right. And the process that you're talking about is smart, because you can't tell. If you're going to conduct a study, you've got to keep the variables so that you can tell what is doing what. So we always recommend start everything one at a time, and you can cumulatively add on if you only change one variable, because if there's any change, it's the last thing that you did. So,
well, in theory,
yes.
It has to build, or it has to, establish.
Right. Now, something I can tell you in regard to Just Thrive is that the spores that are in that product are our spores.
Oh, okay.
That is a what do you call it? A commercial available product for the general public. It doesn't have the full complement of spores, and it doesn't have the same amount. So, so knowing that, if he added the Megaspore to that product, there wouldn't be a problem. But again, if he's cost-wise, if he's planning to, stay under your purview and work with you, it's better for you to see what the spores, what the
I'm sorry, I
megaspore
lost
is.
you.
Oh, it could be the internet connection is getting a little yanky.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a storm down here in Houston where I'm at right now.
Oh, we're in Dallas. We're freezing rain.
Yep. Well, it's probably just heading down here. So yeah, it's important for you to basically conduct your protocol so that you know what's going on with the products that you're going to support him with. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Well, what he said they look like similar formulas, but I can tell you with the Just Thrive. So I'm hoping to get the same results with microbiome. And I'm not going to say anything to him, but it sounds like he'll get even better results.
exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And he's, wants me to see his family as well.
And then what, our studies have shown too, that if they've got gut damage, Megaspore does a really good job of showing people because of the symptoms. So that's what we say, if there is any gut symptom, and that's usually a die-off symptom, could be gas, bloating, cramps, constipation, diarrhea. The answer is always just go slower. But that's also indicating that there is dysbiosis and gut damage. So
Exactly. I followed that earlier.
yeah. So more than likely, they're going to need, again, the prebiotic to help feed those keystone strains because they're not being protected. The keystone strain buffer, that Mucin 1, if they're intact, they're going to be protecting the gut lining. But the gut lining is compromised, so then they would also proceed on with that phase 3 or the mega mucosa product. So it is giving you an indication that there are other issues going on, and Megaspore may not be the final story.
I'm so sorry. I don't know why I got on here and all of a sudden I'm coughing.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Are we still okay?
No, I'm okay. I just suddenly started coughing and I have no idea why. So you're also on the email chain, right?
Now, which email chain are you referring to?
The invitation that I had to come here?
Yes, I sent it out.
Okay. Had your email. The last question is, what type of providers do you bring into the fold? I noticed when I filled out my application that you needed to have a license, but do you bring in health coaches and do you bring in certified nutritionists or only dietitians or?
All of the above. Yes,
okay.
They have to have a license.
Okay, so as long as they're a licensed healthcare professional.
Correct.
Okay, all righty. My friend in Alabama could not join us today, but I told her you do this. She's in Alabama. I don't know if you cover Alabama.
No, there is a rep that's going to be hired for Alabama, but I don't think that person's trained yet.
Okay. So I think she's going to go ahead and sign up as a provider.
Okay.
I have another physician who also had something she was doing today, but she is here in the Dallas area. Can I tell her that you run this every Monday and Thursday?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
And Ken, my husband, is the Dallas Houston rep. He is,
yes.
And I'm helping him out. I mean, the Texas territory has grown very quickly and it's divided, and he's now taken that section, I'm taking the other, but we've had kind of this, I don't know if he mentioned he's got an issue going on with his throat. So
he did.
Yeah.
He did. Yeah, he apologized for that, but I could understand him fine. So
oh, super.
Yeah, I didn't have any problem. I'm used to working with a wide variety of people, so I didn't even, if he hadn't said anything, it wouldn't have fazed me at all.
Super.
So, no, I was telling him I found out about the product through Chris Gonzalez.
Oh, yes.
And, and I've been real excited to be working with him. But anyway, as I've talked to other healthcare providers, I'm finding what you're talking about. There's quite a few people who have been on it and sing its praises. And so I think we're going to put in an order today. When I send the order in, someone sent me a form to fill out. Do I scan that into somebody, or how does that get back to you guys?
You can fill out the form and email it to Ken, or you can just go online, register, and then
Okay,
call.
I'm already registered.
Okay, and then if the account is approved, you can go online and place your order. You don't
I'll do that then. Yeah. They got back to me within about 2 hours on that. That was very nice.
Super. Yeah.
I was surprised how fast, because I expected a couple of days, and they had me all set up. So
yeah, it usually is a couple days, so maybe they've just figured it out now.
Well, it literally was maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Super.
I checked my email again, like 2 hours later, and bam, there it was.
Great. Good to know. So the plan is to, in the mornings, going to be, the afternoons are generally more training for new people. And then the mornings are going to be switching different topics and kind of going deeper into the microbiome and just increasing that knowledge base.
Does your company have any plans to do beyond the gut microbiome?
They are increasing in the products. We've launched the wheat rescue just recently, to help digest the gluten and wheat. And then we launched the Mega Guard for the upper digestion, and then the full total gut restoration program with the separate IgG 2000. And now they're talking about a mega omega, but it's only because it's going to help the microbiome specifically. And then they're going to launch and then they're going to launch a stool test. So I think the products, they have to have a microbiome connection. We don't want to be an A to Z company. We want to be a specialized microbiome.
Well, may I rephrase that?
Yes.
Just to make sure I've understood what you've said. It sounds like what the company wants to stay with is specifically the gut microbiome, and they're not planning to look at microbiomes elsewhere in the body, such as biome or like one of the things that came up recently was the difference in the microbiome in breast tissue.
Right.
And so there's this whole microbiome study and area of focus, to me, sounds like it's about to really explode. I mean,
yes, it is.
Of the mouth, somebody else talks about the microbiome of your hair.
Yes.
And then there's skin, and then there's, so as they're looking at the health of the microbiomes throughout our body, it seems like this company, Microbiome, is so forward thinking that's why I was wondering if maybe they were looking at other areas, other types of microbiomes.
Yes, they are. So let me give you a better answer. We just had the microbiome keynotes, which was in Huntington Beach, California. They invited whoever is in the top of their field in the oral, skin, vaginal, every one of those areas. They came, they lectured, we had masterminds with them, and
Wonderful.
Out of that, yes, they're coming up with customized products. So we will be launching a vaginal cream. It doesn't have spores in it, but because what was reported to us is that the current lubrications on the market are killing the vaginal bacteria.
Oh, I believe it. Between that and, the feminine care products, and I mean, they're designed to kill everything, right?
Exactly. And because this is the birth canal, and that is the initial inoculum, and that pregnant women are going into their OBs and having that area completely compromised, that's why we're launching this product.
Yeah, that makes sense that you would have a re-inoculation before birth. In fact, I could see it even like preconception, with like a booster, once they become pregnant. I think that's very important. And I'm glad to hear that. I think we're going to find more and more about, in my mind, how bacteria run our body. Kind of blow apart what I learned when I went to school as we ran our body.
Exactly. If we've got 23,000, genes, but it takes 10 times that amount to run our body, we know that we're using the genetic material from the bacteria in our body.
We have to be. I mean, if
Yeah.
you look at mitochondria,
Mhm.
we simply developed a tube around everything. You know?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've had to really explain to patients that the gut really is a tube. The
Mhm.
gut really is external to our body, although we don't think of it that way.
Exactly.
You know, that's what the whole, lining of the gut is there for, to keep away the outside from the inside.
Right.
But,
Right.
well, I've sure enjoyed your lecture today. I wanted to thank you very much for that.
You're welcome, and we hope to be talking to you in future lectures as well.
That sounds great. I'll look forward to it.
Okay. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
bye-bye.
Tracy.
Thank you. Take care.